Hi, my name is Scott Crabtree and I'm the town manager here in Saugus. I'm here with Frank Giacalone. He's the Director of Public Health. And this is going to be a series of different pieces of information that we're going to try to work on bringing more information to the public through the use of the local cable television. One of the reasons I have Frank here today is to discuss the West Nile virus. The West Nile virus, as you know, has been reported, and there's been cases reported in different communities, including Saugus. Some of the calls that I'm receiving and residents that I run into ask questions, and they have concerns over West Nile virus. And our hope today is to be able to provide you with some information to reassure you that Saugus and Frank Giacalone and the Board of Health are doing everything they can to ensure the safety and for the residents here in Saugus. So we're going to start off, Frank, if you can just tell us a little bit about yourself and your position that you have as a director.
Okay, I've been with the town now almost 10 years. I started here as the inspector and graciously was given the position about 4 years ago as director of public health. So glad to be here, and again, I think this format is a great way to get the information out to the public.
Yeah, like I said, this is going to be, we're going to try to do different pieces of information with different department heads and issues that are current and affecting the public, and try to get better communication with the public as well as other elected officials. So why don't I start off right away, because I mean, even with my own house and my own family, asking questions. I have two young children. I have a 4-year-old and my daughter just turned 3 last week.
Congrats.
Thank you. But you know, so obviously it's a concern for myself, my family, as well as some of the residents and the calls that we're receiving. I'm sure you are, and emails that we're receiving through the town hall and town manager's office, as well as the selectmen. So maybe you could tell us and tell the public a little bit about what is the West Nile virus.
The West Nile virus is a virus. It's carried by the infected mosquito, and it's transmitted from actually starts with an infected bird, where the mosquito would bite the bird and then transfer it on to humans. The two diseases we have out there are West Nile and the Triple E, but Triple E is rare in this part, and we have not had an issue with the Triple E, so it's mainly West Nile that we're focusing on right now. Right. But we still treat for the Triple E virus as well.
And the other question I get sometimes, and people talk, because I think the history of it is about having dead birds and whatnot. Now, maybe you can tell us, do they need to report dead birds?
Good question.
And how do they dispose of them and whatnot?
Again, through the years, things have changed as West Nile has evolved and moved through different parts of the state. We do know it's out there. You can knock down a population, but it's something that is out there that we need to all be aware of and what the public can do. And I know we'll get into that question. But with the West Nile, again,
so in other words, with the birds, should people report a dead bird? There's no need to do that anymore, because that's no longer the accurate testing for the West Nile at this point?
Yes, it's not that it's not accurate, but the state used to have the dead reporting hotline, and again, because they know it's out there now, there was no need for that program to be in place. So as residents do see dead birds, if they're in their neighborhood, just take caution. Don't handle it with your bare hands, gloves. You can put it in the double bag it and put it in the trash. Okay. So there is no need to call us or inform us of it. But you can, that way we can see if there's a pattern, but we already know it's out there in Saugus and in our neighboring communities as well.
What communities surrounding us have had positive tests?
Basically, it's all these surrounding communities. We've had, just most recently, Melrose, Revere, Lynn, Medford, Nahanta's had it, and sporadically and on different occasions, Andover's had it, Tewksbury, Reading.
And how many positive tests have we had in Saugus, and where are the locations been?
We've had, the Northeast Mosquito Control does test every week, and they actually just did a testing today, and the results will be in Friday, and that's when I normally get the call. And it's unfortunate that it's on a Friday, and usually I get it at 12:30, and then again we do the best we can to address that issue
And get the information
and
out.
get the information out. So we do try to get that information out prior to spraying, but sometimes actually the notification might go out that same day or night that we are spraying.
So we've had, what, a couple?
We've had a total of this being the third positive pool that was tested, and
The location.
it was in the same location. It's always a cemetery this year. We found it in the past to be, sometimes we'll have it different areas
Sure.
of Saugus, and just to let the general public know that we do test, and the locations of the traps are actually strategically set up in different parts of Saugus where it does cover the whole town. And we found our positives. We had 2 positives at the cemetery. Then we had a span of 2 or 3 weeks without any positives, and just most recently right now we just had our 3rd positive in that same testing pool.
And just another question that I think people have is, what are the symptoms of West Nile virus when somebody, a human or a person, is infected by that?
Okay, well, the symptoms are fever, headache, stiffness of the neck. In severe cases, you can have swollen lymph nodes, I'm reading right here, nausea and vomiting. But the initial stages will be the stiff neck and the soreness and the redness as well.
So I guess
of the bite.
this poses the big question, and I think this is, at least to get that information out there. How many people have been infected by, if any, in Saugus by the West Nile virus?
Nothing in Saugus, and even the latest positive, again, when we say positive, it's strictly that a positive mosquito was found in a pool.
Right, which I think
And
is
it's
important
not-
to explain what the testing and what the positive result is actually from, and how they come about that.
The testing is they'll take the canister, which again attracts all the mosquitoes, and Northeast Mosquito Control will go through that and pick out the mosquitoes known to carry the West Nile and Tripoli, and those are sent to the state lab, the Hinton lab in Jamaica Plain, and that's why it takes a couple of days to get the results back. And when the results come out, I'll get alerted via what we call the HAN, which is a Health Alert Network, and I'll get buzz on my phone as well. I have it set up that way that, and even when we get positive neighboring towns, I'm alerted as well.
Right, and then as far as the canisters that you talk about, the mosquito control, they have strategic places that they set those canisters up for testing?
Yes.
All over Saugus?
Yes, and it's enough that it covers the whole town. We have them down by the 107 Bristol area, Lily Pond area,
Sure.
Cemetery, as well as the other parts.
So the West Nile is common in Massachusetts, and obviously we've had experience with positive tests this year and in the past. How do you feel, I guess, as far as we've been elevated to a higher status alert, and I guess maybe you can explain that and explain to the public what that means and what concerns or non-concerns you have regarding
Well,
that.
I want to say that the good news is the positive that was tested is low in number. We only had 2 physical specimens in that trap of hundreds. So it's telling us that we do have it out there, but right now it seems to be in low numbers. But we do need to take preventive measures. In the past, we've had them again, but in other areas of Saugus. I know last year we had it out by School Street.
Sure.
And this year we have it here. West Nile is out there, and the best way for us to deal with this is the public should just take preventive measures.
And what type of preventive measures can somebody take?
Insect repellent, DEET is what's recommended, and these are right by the state guidelines as well. Long sleeve shirts and long pants. I know in the summertime in 80, 90 degree weather, you don't want to do that. But again, then wear your repellent. Dusk to dawn is when the mosquitoes are most active. And just, again, take precautions if you are out there that you should have repellent. Children.
What about at home and whatnot, as far as stagnant water and things like that? What can you give advice on that?
Those are prime breeding grounds. They love stagnant water. During the day, the mosquitoes, they like the shade and stay in the cool places and trees and whatnot. But then when it starts to cool down a little bit, they're out there. Water sources, tires, gutters, bird baths. after heavy rains, if you do have things out there, I'm prone to keep an open cooler airing out in my deck, and after a rainstorm, I'll empty it out.
And for children, the same thing as far as insect repellent.
Yeah, the DET is not recommended though for 2
children.
months and younger. Take caution with that, or what your doctor would prescribe, and anything that you do put on your children, just follow the manufacturer's recommendations.
Yeah, I know with myself and my children, we use a lot of some organic things that don't have certain chemicals in them, but and some of them have been very effective, and others haven't. We've done test this one and try this and see what works.
It's a trial and error type thing, because we do the same thing. Yeah. We go from the spray on to the lotions.
I've even used in my own yard. I've like garlic. Some garlic sprays that they tell you, that are supposed to be good for repellent of mosquitoes. It wasn't all that effective, but you certainly had the smell of garlic in the yard. But I guess the other question that I guess would be concerned, knowing, I guess the good news is knowing that we have not had a case of somebody being infected in Saugus. If people that are infected or have been in other parts of the state or in other states, what's the treatment for that?
The treatment is, they'd have to see their doctor, but it's one of those diseases that more or less your body would fight off on its own. But the elderly and infants, that's where you'd want to get your doctor involved in your professional advice to them. And
one of the other facts that I wasn't necessarily aware of, and I think maybe a lot of people aren't, is that people are actually there's not a lot. Not everybody is infected, even if you were stung by a mosquito carrying West Nile. That is a very low percentage of people that actually have an adverse reaction from that. Is that correct? Correct.
And a lot of these numbers that the state comes up in terms of how many people are infected, which is usually low in number, but they might actually be more because a lot of people will not, report it to their doctors, or they'll just think that they got stung and their body would fight it off naturally.
Sure.
So the numbers could be higher, but again, the elderly and the infants is where it would affect them more severely, if anything.
Sure. I think one of the other big questions that I receive from residents is they all want to know, and they don't understand. Geez, years ago we used to do insect spraying for the whole entire town. Now that there's West Nile active cases down at the cemetery, I know that we sprayed in the past. In the last month or so, we sprayed down at the cemetery in a location area. A lot of questions I get are, how come we're not spraying the entire town? And maybe you can explain and explain what we're doing and give us some background on that and some content.
We used to spray the whole town, and actually that was
back a lot
in
of
the
years
budget
ago.
too. A lot of years ago, we had our own truck and we had someone employed to do that, and that was in addition to the program that we're in with the mosquito control as well. Since then, and that program has changed. Not changed. We just have not sprayed.
Sure.
I believe Walter, he had, God forbid, passed away.
Sure.
And that funding, I've not seen that in the budget.
Are there environmental concerns with the spraying the entire town?
Environmentally, no, because the dosage of the pesticide that's used actually is very low. So it's not harmful, but it's a nuisance, and you don't want to be behind a fogging truck.
Although they do tell you to close your windows.
Exactly, that's recommended. Stay indoors until they do pass by. And the thing with the townwide spraying too is some residents just are very opposed to any type of pesticide.
Sure.
And the drawback to doing a townwide spraying is you're going to have gaps in there where people do not want sprayed, so the truck will actually shut off their sprayer. So you're going to have gaps where you're not going to have anything sprayed.
Sure. So in regard to what we have now with the third positive test, where are we at, I guess, the latest update on having spraying and where we're going to be spraying in the near future here?
Okay, I just got the latest update actually just before this filming here, that we're trying to get a spraying done this evening, being Wednesday, in that cemetery area and addressing the areas that border the other communities that have had the positive and are also elevated. So we're looking at the
Melrose and Wakefield?
Yes, we're looking at the
Main Street,
cemetery area, Main Street, Essex Street, Stevens Pond, Griswold Pond, and was it East Main Street also as well?
Sure.
And those are the neighboring areas for the town. So we're taking actually one step further, not just doing the cemetery where we did it the last time and up around Central Street where they did a loop. Now we're targeting other areas as well. And the reason why we can't do a town-wide spraying right now is the Northeast Mosquito Control is so inundated right now with.
Sure. So that's something that we'd be considering based on some additional test results that we'll probably receive on Friday.
Yes, that's
but for
exactly
the time
it.
being, we're going to go out and spray these areas and target these areas.
Yes, we're targeting the known area from the positive in conjunction with the neighboring towns that were positive as well. So we're taking care of, we've actually expanded a little bit. And if we do have an additional positive on Friday, we'll work on getting it. I'm going to recommend a town-wide spraying.
Okay, great. Anything else you can add? That pretty much covers it?
Yeah, I just want people to know that it is out there, and I know people are very concerned, but they shouldn't push the panic button right now. A lot of these things that we're recommending and the state is recommending as well, it's just a lot of common sense. Again, the insect repellent is key, the long sleeves, and I know certain areas of Saugus are just prone to have it, Baker's Hill area. This year, with the mild winter we had, and the way the rain came in abundance at certain times, just was prime, prime for mosquito larvae to grow and hatch. And I also wanted to address these catch basins as well.
Sure.
The Northeast Mosquito Control not only does, it's not just a surveillance program, they're out there in the beginning of the season, and they'll treat the salt marshes, and they also treat the catch basins, and the treatment that they use, they last for about 150 days. They're using alticide. Okay. So we're not recommending that people put anything in the storm drains because that's going to end up right in the Saugus River.
Right.
So the product that they use is eco-friendly, and the catch basins are treated. So if you do see standing water there, just be knowing that they've been treated. Treated.
Okay, great. Yeah. Well, thank you very much. I think, I want to thank Frank Giacalone and the Board of Health, and I think if you have any further questions, he's open to take your call at 781-231-4115. And I want to assure the public and the residents that the Board of Health and Frank and the town are doing everything they can to ensure the safety and to deal with the mosquito issue and the positive results that have come from the West Nile virus. Yes. So, and again, this will be one of many informational pieces that we're going to do through the Saugus cable to try to get information directly and a better communication with the public. So I want to thank you and thank Frank.
Thanks, Scott.
We're back here trying to give you an update to the public so that you have the most up-to-date information. And since our taping on the West Nile virus with Frank Giacalone from the Board of Health, there's been some updates and a updated recommendation from the Board of Health. And maybe, Frank, we can get right into it and just explain to everyone what the Board of Health has recommended and what they've issued in their recommendation.
What the state recommends is the public should just be cognizant and try to avoid outdoor activities between peak mosquito activity, which is from dusk till dawn. And we're not outright banning the activities, but it's also good to try to reschedule events prior to that time, that 4 or 5 slot, maybe even pushing it till 6. But after that is when the activity really gets heavy with the mosquitoes, and even though we haven't had any positives in other areas, West Nile is prevalent throughout the state, so the public just take caution. And also the recommendation is to wear repellent, DEET, try to go out there with long sleeves and long pants, especially now that the weather is dropping at nighttime. Might be a good idea to do that as well. Okay, and just so the public knows, that information as far as a fact sheet, state fact sheet on West Nile virus, as well as the written recommendation from the Board of Health, will be on the town website as well as the Board of Health website. And I guess since our taping earlier in the week,
There was some spraying that has taken place, spot spraying, and that took place, I believe, on Wednesday evening.
Yes, it did, Scott. Wednesday evening, we target sprayed again where the positive was, around the cemetery area. But the target spraying was also expanded to include Hamilton Street, because that's the backside of the cemetery, and up along Central Street. In addition, we did some additional, because bordering towns had also had some West Nile virus, so the areas around the Melrose area, Upper Main Street into Wakefield also got sprayed. So we won't have any, try to knock down the population of the positives heading into Saugus as well.
And then when we talked earlier and taped earlier this week, we were waiting, we did some, there was some additional tests that were done, and we were waiting for those results. And as of today, we don't have those results, but you're expecting the results of that sometime later today?
Correct. We get the results normally in the afternoon, late in the afternoon on Fridays, and they get alerted to that.
Okay.
But we have not gotten the results yet.
And if we do get any additional information sometime later today, we can always update the website so that people could check the website for that information.
Absolutely.
And I guess just, obviously with that recommendation, the Saugus High School football game, they chose to adhere to the recommendation and move the game to 4 o'clock rather than having a evening game at 7 o'clock as a precautionary measure based on the recommendation. What is your, maybe you can give some context of other activities. I'm sure people are going to have questions. And my kid plays in this. Is there an issue during the day? Is it at night? And how serious should we look at this?
I think it was a good move to move the football game back, even though I know it's a very popular event and it's well attended by the public, supporting the football team, obviously. But moving it back to that 4 o'clock time, the game itself is right in the peak time for the activity. And even though there were no positives in that area, you'd never want to, we felt that the board just wanted to be more cautious. So that's why they recommended outdoor activities to be moved back during that time. Soccer games, which I know start at 3:45.
Sure.
I spoke to both Coach Carviello and someone else from the youth soccer. Those should be completed enough that they'll miss the peak time.
Sure. And I think it's also important to mention that we haven't had human infected. And I think people need, that's an important point to mention.
Correct. There hasn't been any positive West Nile viruses in Saugus or in the surrounding communities that I'm aware of.
You're talking about 3 different positive tests that we've had in Saugus over the last month and a half with an actual mosquito from one of the cans that they've tested.
Yes, that's from the mosquito pool. The testing, so the public is clear that when we say positive West Nile, unless we say human case, when we say positive West Nile, it's from the mosquito pools that are tested.
And those are all in one location thus far in Saugus in the last month and a half, which is the cemetery area.
Yes, the positive were in that one location, but there are multiple testing pools throughout Saugus that covers the whole area of Saugus.
And I guess I'm going to ask the question that I've been getting for the last few days is that we did the spot spraying, and I guess people want to know, can we do more, and what is it that we have scheduled and as far as doing maybe a town-wide spray?
Okay. I do want to address the town-wide spray as well. A lot of people have been calling and say why we don't. We don't necessarily spray town-wide, and not just in this community. The way Northeast Mosquito Control does it is we'll target the areas that are positive. And town-wide spraying is not out of the question, but it is done, and I have done in the past when we've had positive West Nile in different pools.
In locations.
Yes, exactly. And we were fortunate enough that it only was in that one pool at the cemetery. And that's why we targeted that area and then expanded it to the surrounding communities.
But just as a precaution, what is it that the Board of Health has requested at this point for a town-wide spray?
We did request a town-wide spraying due to our recommendation, just so we won't, hope that we won't have any West Nile in other areas of town as well. And also that we can have safe activities during those times if people choose to have them.
And I guess one of the other questions that people may misunderstand or not understand is what is the effectiveness of spraying in general, whether it's town wire or spotting? How long does that last? What you know, in their lifespan of the mosquito, what is it targeting, and how long does that last, and the effectiveness of it?
Okay, a little biology lesson right here then.
Yes.
The mosquitoes, there's two species of mosquitoes that actually carry the West Nile, and there's another that carries Triple E. The spraying is targeting the mosquitoes, and most importantly, those ones that carry the viruses. But the spraying targets the adult mosquitoes, and the adult mosquitoes have to be active. That's why.
And what do you mean by active?
They have to be flying around, so that's why they'll be spraying after 8 p.m. Usually is a good time during the highest activity of mosquitoes. And there's no residual left, so it's not like it's on the branches or anything or in the larvae, so it actually kills the adult population. And the adult population...
From laying the eggs?
Yes, by killing them,
Yeah.
especially the female, because the female mosquito is the one that bites and lays the eggs.
Sure.
We don't care about the guys in this case.
And what is the lifespan of that adult mosquito?
They're typically about a week to 2 weeks. Ideal conditions, it could be, 3, even maybe 4, but typically 1 to 2 weeks is the lifespan of the adult mosquito. So when you spray, you're killing the adult population so they won't lay the eggs.
So hence the effectiveness of the spray is usually somewhere around of a couple of weeks of that cycle of the mosquito, the adult mosquito that's laying eggs.
For the adult mosquito, but you also have to understand that you're breaking a cycle, so they're not laying the eggs where
That carry the
3,
virus.
4, 5,
Yes.
even 6 weeks later, you're going to have another population of mosquitoes.
Sure. Okay, great. Well, I think that does it. I think, again, if you have any questions, you can call Frank Giacalone at his number at 781-231-4115. And the information will be up on the website. And we just hope that this information is helpful and use caution. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.